competent TSCM services are not inexpensive. And depending on your threat level, you can expect to pay anywhere from $1,000 to $10,000 per office. I know that some of you are having a difficult time swallowing right now, so let me explain why you're paying so much. First of all, a truly competent TSCM service professional is a rare commodity. Secondly, they have a business overhead just like yours. However, their required business assets per employee are probably 20 to 100 times more expensive than most all-service businesses. Also, the preparation work required to do a competent sweep is substantially greater than what you would think. You know, it's funny. Most companies won't hesitate to pay top-tier attorneys $500 to $1,000 per hour or even more. Yet they choke on the price of hiring a competent TSCM service provider. These guys are not security guards or Chase bail bond jumpers. They're highly intelligent and well-educated professionals dedicated to a unique industry. While we're on the subject of money, let me briefly talk about the time issue. Competent TSCM sweeps take a lot of time. Typically a minimum of 7 man-hours per office, and that's if you're having several offices swept. And that doesn't include the time to unpack, set up, and then tear down and repack a lot of very expensive equipment. It's not unreasonable to find that a simple one-office sweep will take 2 highly skilled technicians an entire day. As a matter of fact, depending on the threat level, maybe as much as 2 or 3 days. Let me share one of my experiences or war stories with you. I had a New York client who owned a small manufacturing company in the Midwest. The security director for the holding company contracted with me to perform TSCM sweep services because the company was having some labor problem issues. Anyway, he flew in from New York and I from Texas. We met for dinner and then proceeded to the manufacturing area to start a late-night sweep of the CEO's office and phone lines. During the next few hours, he kept asking me why I was taking so long, and that some of the other TSCM service providers he'd hired in the past worked much faster than I was. I repeatedly told him that this is not a wave the magic wand issue, and that it took time to do the right job. Anyway, in the wee hours of the morning, I discovered a wiretap on the CEO's line leading to a fire pump room about 200 feet away in the manufacturing area. Obviously, he was extremely happy to discover the source of the information leak, and actually expanded the TSCM sweep to cover additional areas. However, he continued to harass me about what was taking so long. Ladies and gentlemen, before returning to Texas 2 days later, I told the security director to never call me again. You know, having a TSCM sweep is not much different than having your accountants perform an audit. If you want the job done right, then it simply takes time. Oh, by the way, the service was contracted for at a flat fee. In other words, he would have paid me the same amount of money if I'd done the job in 5 hours or 5 days. I often refer to this as the case of the truly uneducated security director. Okay, let's talk about one other subject before concluding this chapter, and that's training and education. There are no degree programs for the TSCM industry, and very few competent training programs. As a matter of fact, the only ongoing and good training program that I'm aware of is conducted by REI in Tennessee. Now, most of you were probably thinking that someone that's trained by one of the federal law enforcement or intelligence agencies is the best qualified. Well, in some areas you may be right, but this is certainly not true when it comes to telephone eavesdropping. As a matter of fact, one of the basic rules for the State Department and all intelligence agencies is that you never discuss sensitive business on the telephone, unless you're on a secure line that has appropriate encryption equipment. They accept the fact that other governments are always tapping their lines, and therefore why bother to check them for wiretaps? Therefore, they don't offer any meaningful training in this area. The bottom line here is that a rogue telephone repairman will probably have more knowledge about illegal wiretapping than any provided by a TSCM training program. Remember my friend Pat McCann? He had no training at all, and yet he beat the best of the FBI, the telephone company, and Bell Labs. Why? Because he was smart, daring, and always looking for ways to better his craft. A good TSCM technician is the same way. I know I'm not making this simple for you, but asking about the training of a TSCM professional can sometimes be fruitless. Personally, I'd rely more on the reputation of the security directors Okay, let me summarize what I've talked about in this chapter. Number one, do not contact a potential TSCM service provider from your office, via phone or computer, or for that matter, even from your cell phone. Go somewhere else and do it. Number two, TSCM services are not inexpensive. You'll typically get what you pay for. But if you were on trial for murder, would you hire the best attorney you could afford, or would you look for the cheapest? Number three, TSCM services take time. Don't rush them. Number four, listen to the advice of professional security directors. And as is a good place to find them. Okay, this ends the discussion of eavesdropping devices and techniques, and TSCM equipment and service providers. I've probably overwhelmed many of you, but remember this is a very serious business. All right, in Chapter 11, I'm going to briefly talk about some of the legal issues surrounding electronic eavesdropping and TSCM services. So I'll see you there.